So late Friday night, President Trump does another executive order. I thought for a second that conservatives hated executive orders. Credit to Justin Amash, who's a Tea Party Republican who actually did protest Trump's executive order as he did under Obama. Very few principled people left. But most other Republicans celebrate the executive orders of Donald Trump, whereas they claim that they were wildly unconstitutional under President Obama. Now, the reality of the matter is that Trump can do some executive orders around immigration. The question is, what is in the order? What is he doing it based on? And then how do the courts rule on it? And what does he do when the courts say no? Well, in this particular case, he continued to do exactly what he was planning to do, even though 3 different federal courts have told him that this ban, as it pertains to the people that have already arrived, should be stopped and they should be released. Okay, but the guy who ran as a rule of law candidate apparently does not care about the rule of law at all. So first, let's tell you what's in the executive order. Then let's show you the reaction all across the country to that executive order, and then give you the facts surrounding what the reality is. So here's what it does. It bans entry to the U.S. for people born in 7 majority Muslim countries: Syria, Iraq, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen, including holders of legal green cards and visas, for 90 days. It suspends the Syrian refugee plan indefinitely. It suspends entire refugee plan for 120 days. It bans entry to the U.S. for dual nationality passport holders, meaning citizens of the above countries who also hold, for example, a British passport, are also banned for 90 days. Let's pause there. The British complained so loudly about that. That is one of the few things that they rolled back. But it is true that, and I don't know if they've rolled it back for France or our other allies, but certainly in the beginning for all of them, it didn't matter. If you were a British citizen, you are not allowed here if you were also a citizen of one of those 7 other countries. And there are many dual citizens in not only Britain, but all across Europe. So I know it's been rolled back for Britain, not sure if it has for the others. So if you're French, Italian, German, it might not matter at all. You might also be blocked. And by the way, even though they rolled it back, they only rolled it back if you're coming from Britain. If you are a British citizen and you have dual citizenship and you are trying to come in from Iraq or Syria for whatever reason, maybe you were a journalist there, or maybe you were part of our intelligence agencies. When I say I mean overall our allies. You were British intelligence. Sorry, if you're coming from Iraq, you're a dual citizen, you're not going to be allowed into the United States of America. It's amazing, from those 7 countries. Now, the most important part in terms of why this is so particularly un-American is it also prioritizes Christian refugees over Muslims. So when now they backpedal a little bit and claim it's not a Muslim ban because they know that is unconstitutional, they say, well, I mean, you know, it's not strictly Muslims, it's just those 7 countries. We didn't ban the others, but we're thinking about it, right? Well, how about the fact that you say that Christians will get priority? That seems like perhaps it has something to do with religion. And they capped the refugee total at $50,000. Obviously draconian. And one more thing from the Mirror Online, it's a fact that is in every publication that's actually decent and smart enough to cover full context. They say that of all the fatal terror attacks carried out on U.S. soil since 9/11, exactly 0 have been committed by immigrants from the 7 majority Muslim countries targeted by the ban. It's almost as if it's not really about terrorism. It's about fear-mongering and demagoguery and attacking one particular religion. Almost. Now, again, as they say today, like, is it a Muslim ban? Or would that make it unconstitutional? No, we're not calling it a Muslim ban. Oops, Rudy Giuliani screwed up on Fox News when talking about it because he couldn't help but brag about how Trump had come to him. He apparently didn't come to him for a cabinet position, though. He said, I'll tell you the whole history of it, he said on air. So when Trump first announced it, he said, Muslim ban. That's Giuliani talking. He called me up. He said, put a commission together. Show me the right way to do it legally. So the whole point is, I want Muslims banned, which he said many times on the campaign trail. I mean, the famous press conference, total and complete ban. And obviously he tried to find a way to try to make it legal. He did not succeed. He went on to do it anyway. So anyone pretending it's not a Muslim ban is being enormously disingenuous. Okay, now we go to David Chancellor. He's the director of Triangle Center They analyze attacks like this and had comments on this particular ban. And he said, it is flatly untrue that America is deeply threatened by violent extremism by Muslim Americans. Attacks by Muslims accounted for only 1/3 of 1% of all murders in America last year. So if you're worried about violence in America, there's plenty of murders, plenty of homicides by guns, among other things, terrorist attacks, small proportion. But of all of the attacks and all of the murders, terrorist attacks committed by Muslims is 1/3 of 1% of all the murders in America. Wow, emergency, emergency, ban everyone. I've said this many times before. There is one demographic that is actually primarily responsible for the overwhelming majority of the murders in America. And if you actually wanted to do quote unquote logical profiling and pick one group to profile or ban, it would be young males. They commit an enormous percentage, not 1/3 of 1%. Now, I don't want to give you numbers here without having them in front of me, but we've done the stories before. A gigantic percentage of the murders committed in America are committed by young males, and certainly males overall. If you cared about keeping people safe, you would theoretically profile there. By the way, I would be 100% opposed to that, not just because I'm a male, though no longer young. I'm opposed to it because that is un-American. Even if you think, well, that's the group doing it, we don't profile based on that in America because we don't want to discriminate and treat everybody differently. The whole point of America is that we're all equal. Okay, I want you to know that it has actually no logical basis for these bans. According to the State Department, of the nearly 800,000 refugees who have come to the U.S. since 9/11, fewer than 20 have been arrested on terrorism charges. 20 out of 800,000. Now, this is not since 9/11, but I often give this example. I give you dozens of examples, but there was a Syrian refugee who came into the country. He had a kid here, and that kid wound up being Steve Jobs. So when you ban people, you also have the downside of those bans, which is that we no longer have the best and the brightest coming here, the best talent, and then we don't have the great companies, don't have a great economy, etc. There's a downside to these actions. In fact, most Americans realize that. That is why there was protests all across the country. I'm going to give you a small sample of those. Let's go to New Mexico first. These are all largely at the airports to go defend the people coming in. Now let's go to Los Angeles. Giant protests at LAX. Try to give credit to the people who shot those by putting their Twitter handles in there. And as I looked at that, I was like, oh, I know Marcy Winograd. All right, let's go to more LAX protests. Now let's go to Miami.
The people united will never be divided. The people united will never be divided. The people united will never be divided.
St. Louis.
The St. Louis airport around 2:30. There you go. Rally at the St. Louis International Airport. Cop. Where's Katie?
finally Arizona.
Makes America great. Love, not hate. 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 Makes America great. Love, not hate.
See, those are real Americans. They understand the point of the country. That's why when it is under attack, and that's what's happening here, the idea of America is under attack, they respond. I asked after the election for people to say, not on our watch, not in a blanket sense, not against Trump before he takes action. And the reason I said that is, okay, look, let's actually give the guy a chance. He won the election. You don't get to win every election. It's not about being a liberal or a conservative, Democrat or Republican. But then he started to appoint his nominees to the cabinet, and you saw what happened there. And then he takes office. And in a whirlwind, in 7 days, he attacks the core ideas of America. That's when you say, not on our watch. So you see all those protests. And by the way, we just gave you a small sampling. There was JFK, there was O'Hare, there was a giant one in San Francisco. Thousands of people, again, showing up to protest. And so what does Trump have to say about all this?
It's not a Muslim ban, but we were totally prepared. It's working out very nicely. You see it at the airports. You see it all over. It's working out very nicely. And we're going to have a very, very strict ban, and we're going to have extreme vetting, which we should have had in this country for many years.
It's working out very nicely? I think we might have different definitions of that phrase. But maybe they think it is working great. I mean, they wanted demagoguery, and demagoguery they got. They wanted attention on their hate-filled rhetoric because they think it's populist and works. Well, they got attention on it. So now, of course, it has real-life ramifications. And so they asked Sean Spicer about it, and in particular about a 5-year-old boy who was detained. Let's first look at his callous response.
Look at how it worked when you talk about the 325,000 people. 109 were temporarily inconvenienced for the safety of us all.
There was a 5-year-old from Iran for 5 hours.
And they were processed through, Kristen. That's the process. I get the point is that you can go through and nitpick and say, okay, well, this individual is, but that's why we slow it down a little, and to make sure that if they are a 5-year-old, that maybe they're with their parents and they don't pose a threat. But to assume that just because of someone's age or gender or whatever, that they don't pose a threat would be misguided and wrong.
Oh, that's interesting. So, I mean, if only we had video of the 5-year-old, and you could judge for yourself whether he poses a threat, because you can't assume that a 5-year-old, I mean, he's from Iran. You can't assume that he doesn't pose a threat. Well, it turns out after being detained, this very potentially dangerous Iranian 5-year-old was released to his mom.
This Iranian mother's 5-year-old son that you see on the left-hand side, she anxiously awaiting his arrival at Washington's Dulles International Airport Saturday night, only to learn that he was one of the travelers detained. And there you see the reunion after hours spent without answers. She finally got to hold on to her son in her arms right there. Here's part of the emotional moment when they reunited.
So that's what we're protecting the country from. Obviously, CNN covering that. So now, one of the other people banned, in fact, one of the first people who was detained and then released, was a guy who happened to work for us for 10 years in Iraq, endangering his life. His name is Hamid Jalid Darwish, and there's a tweet of him being greeted at the airport when he was finally released. He has nothing but great things to say about America, loves America, but they weren't checking for whether you're a real American. They were checking to see if you're a Muslim from one of the 7 countries that have now been put on the banned list. And so the fact that he risked his life for us was immaterial, and he was questioned because of his nationality originally and his religion, of course, because if he was a Christian, they would get priorities. This is not what America's about. And finally, I want to leave you with a little bit of hope. And of course, all those protests are enormously hopeful. But on that weekend when all this started breaking down, we also got this note, and Huffington Post relays it. Tonight, the day after the anniversary of the Holocaust Remembrance Day, hundreds of New Yorkers, this is the New York Civil Liberties Union that put this out, hundreds of New Yorkers will join Jewish community leaders, civil rights and civil liberties organizations, immigrants' rights organizations, and local elected officials to condemn President Trump's executive order suspending the U.S. refugee program and the entry into the U.S. of nationals from 7 Muslim-majority countries, and to affirm solidarity with refugees and immigrants who seek safety and opportunity in this country. So yes, with Trump, we have seen the worst of America. But in reaction to Trump, we have seen the best of America. So whether it's the New York Civil Liberties Unions or other religious organizations that are banding together and saying, not on our watch, or simply average Americans going out to do the most American thing you could do, protest. And so if you're going to commit acts that are un-American at the airport, we'll see you at the airport. If you're going to do it in the streets, we'll see you in the streets. If you're going to do it in government buildings, we'll see you in government buildings. This is the resistance, as it should be, the most American thing you can do. And you need to do it often, because apparently this guy is going to flout the laws, flout our traditions, and flout the Constitution over and over again. 3 different courts told him that he must release the people who were detained at the airports. He refused to do it. He does not care about the Constitution or the rule of law. We've got to make him care. And it begins with protests. So I'm both deeply discouraged by his actions and deeply encouraged by your reaction. Let's keep it going. The corporate media has multi-million-dollar anchors. We have you guys. Go to tytnetwork.com/go, and you can help hire investigative reporters that'll do real journalism.